Okay, so I do want to make a quick note here that tonight is Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the Jewish New Year. And so I want to talk for just a minute about Rosh Hashanah because it is a very meaningful time in Jewish life. And frankly, I think it has some things to teach everybody about the nature of the universe in which we live. So the Jewish New Year happens starting tonight. It carries on for 2 days. It's sort of different from the American New Year or the World New Year in that during the American New Year, you're drinking, you're merry, and then you sort of make resolutions for the new year. The Jewish New Year is about two things. It's about celebrating God's creation of the universe, and it's about leading off what are called the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, which are the 10 days of repentance. So you have 10 days to sort of get your life straight before Yom Kippur, which is the day of repentance, which I'll be taking off a day in 10 days to fast and pray for repentance. And the idea here is that you have basically, on the repentance side, you have 10 days to sort of demonstrate to God that you would like to fix your problems. And, it's a beautiful idea, but we'll get to, maybe I'll talk about Yom Kippur near Yom Kippur. But when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, the idea of God's creation of the universe being celebrated, the Bria, as it's called in Hebrew, at the beginning of Genesis, that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Why is that an important idea? Well, it's an important idea for a variety of reasons. First of all, it means that man is central to the universe. That doesn't mean that we are literally living at the center of the universe, as pre-Copernican theory sort of suggested. It doesn't mean that man is completely disconnected from the animal world. What it does mean is that human beings create meaning in the universe. This is why when people say, that the earth would be better off without us, what does the earth care? The earth has no sentience. What does it matter whether the trees feel better without human beings? Human beings are meaning-creating creatures. And thus, meaning in the universe springs into existence with the creation of sentient human beings. So God's creation of the universe, in that way, the universe was made for man to provide meaning in the universe. And so God's creation of man lends meaning to the entire creation itself. God's creation of the universe culminates with man. See, there's something beautiful about the biblical story of creation. It does two things. One, it reminds human beings that they are nothing. And two, it reminds human beings that they are everything. It reminds human beings that they are created from the earth, and back to the earth they will return. Human beings in the creation story in Genesis are created on the sixth day of creation. They don't have their own separate day of creation, right? God creates the animals and he creates human beings at the very end of the sixth day, meaning that we are innately wrapped up in our own animal instincts, but we have the capacity to look up to the stars. Meaning rests in us, and if we fail to take advantage of that meaning, then we are degraded to the level of animals. The importance of God creation, and we should be grateful for the fact that God created the universe the way that he did. We should be grateful for this universe, which is not always easy to be. I mean, it's a tough universe to live in sometimes. But we should be very grateful for the fact that God fine-tuned the universe. This is the argument that religious people often make for the existence of God and trying to evidence God in the universe, is that the conditions had to be incredibly precise in order for human beings to arise. And in fact, there was a recent study showing that of 10 million stars that have been surveyed, that we've seen essentially no signs of any other form of anything like sentient human beings or sentient creatures literally anywhere. The conditions for the creation of life have to be extraordinarily precise. Atheists will say, well, if you run the same game over and over and over, then eventually you come up with life. And so they posit things like multiple universe theory, that there's tons of universes, an infinite number of universes, actually. And so if there are an infinite number of universes, then every possibility is possible in every universe. The evidence for multiple universes is zero because you can't get outside your own universe to actually examine whether there are multiple universes, which means that that's an act of faith as well. The fine-tuning of the universe for human life is indeed proof that something wants us to be here. And that is something that is worth noting. Now, the counter-argument is that, if you're the one guy who wins the lottery, then you think that the lottery picked you out. Okay, but that assumes that there's a winner in the lottery. There didn't have to be a winner in the lottery. Whenever there's a lottery, you assume there will be one winner. It just happens to be you this time. But in this universe, there's no reason why there has to be life. It could be a coincidence. It is, when you have this many things lining up this way, it tends toward the conclusion that it is not. Now, put aside sort of the religious arguments for a second. What is the value of believing on a human level that God created the universe? A few things. One, if you are a scientifically minded person, then you tend to believe that the universe operates by understandable rules. You also tend to believe in things like objective truth, that outside of you, there is a truth, that not all truth is about your subjective perception of the truth, and that your mind can grasp these truths. There's nothing in simple materialism that suggests any of these things. Objective truth does not exist in a world of pure materialism. You're simply an evolved creature who is capable of adapting to your environment. That doesn't mean that the way you adapt is true. It means that you adapt in the most adaptable way. But if you believe there is such a thing as objective truth, you have to explain why there is such a thing as objective truth outside of you. Why are there rules that we, as human beings, very, very limited creatures, can actually understand and utilize to our advantage? And it's not just that we are utilizing them to our advantage in ways that are sort of practical. It's that we can understand objectively true things. How do you believe in an objective truth if you don't believe that there's anything setting that objective truth? Adaptability and environmental adaptation do not equal objective truth. So the idea that God created the universe with certain understandable rules leads inevitably to the idea that the human being has the capacity to understand many of those rules. So it leads to the impetus for science, because science is about the investigation of those objective rules and objective truths. It suggests discernible rules in the universe. And on a human level, it also suggests that human beings have incredible worth. Right? The biblical account of creation, I've said this before, the single most important verse in the Bible is that God created human beings in his image. It doesn't mean that God looks like human beings. What it means is that God created us with the ability to reason. God created us with the ability to create, and that we owe each other recognition that we are each made in God's image. You can't enslave somebody if you believe that they are made in the image of God. You can't mistreat somebody if you believe that they are made in the image of God. Enlightenment values of individualism and individual rights spring directly from the idea that you are made in the image of God. Because on a pure materialistic level, who cares? You're just a ball of meat wandering through the universe. So the idea of God's creation lends weight to the statements of the Declaration of Independence, which is, of course, why Jefferson, who had a sort of complicated relationship with organized religion at the very best, suggests that our rights lie inevitably in a creator or nature. Now, what that means in the end, and this is how it connects to the 10 days of repentance, is that we do have responsibilities to the one who created us. Just like you have responsibilities to your parents, you have responsibilities to the one who created us, who gave us a mind to comprehend the universe around us. He did that so that we could seek truth and act morally. God created us with a moral sense, right? This is the Kantian statement that the best evidence of God is the starry heavens above and the moral sense within. We have the capacity to understand the universe. We have the capacity to intuit moral laws from looking at the universe around us. Is the idea of natural law, which inevitably, well, not inevitably, eventually gives rise to the idea of natural rights, that rights lie within you. The birth of the Enlightenment, the birth of science, the birth of all the things that you believe in, whether you're a secular humanist living in the United States or whether you're a religious person, lie in the basic idea that God created the universe, and that's what we're celebrating here on Rosh Hashanah. So with that said, Shana Tova U'Metuka, meaning a sweet and happy new year to you. And we'll see you here a little bit later today for a couple additional hours, or we'll see you here next week. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.